Greetings, this is Artie from Artifact Electronics. So we got a Macintosh Classic here that I've had for forever. I used to use it for a specific app which I'll show you later on, but I haven't used it in a long time. It was sitting on top of a tall bookshelf and for years, and I just realized I had it the other day and I thought, hey, let's put it on the bench and see what it does. But I think it didn't age too well. So let's give it a try. The keyboard is not the original keyboard that came with it. It's just an Apple keyboard that I have. Same with the mouse, but they do, or at least used to function with this unit. So let's see what happens when we turn it on after all this time. I reduced the light so we could see the screen a little bit better. Now, one thing I noticed immediately is it didn't make the startup beep. And oh, okay, we got the Smiley Mac face on it. So it did boot up, or is booting up. And as for one thing, let's have a look and see why the sound didn't play. And the easiest is, I guess, to go to the control panel. Now, let me forewarn you, I'm not very good with the OS on this, and I also noticed the screen looks kind of blue in the video. It's not. It's whitish, but for some reason it shows up as blue. Has a blue tinge to it, but that's only in video land. So what we can do over here is, here's the speaker volume, and if we crank that up all the way, I don't know if you can hear that, but it does make a ding sound, but it's very faint, very, very faint, and that's not normal. So something, and this used to work. So my prognosis for this is that well, as usual, we probably have some bad capacitors somewhere, either on the motherboard or on the power supply, or a combo of both. I also tried this a little while before, like a couple of days ago, and it took it a real hard time, long time to boot up. It actually came up with a screen full of garbage, and after a few minutes it recovered and it actually booted, but it had a hard time, and today it booted right up. So I don't know if that's a matter of configuration or the capacitors. It probably has it does have a bad backup battery, because I changed the desktop pattern when I had it booted up and it reverted back to something, I guess whatever the default is here. So, you know, you can change the background pattern by selecting it through here and then applying it by clicking in here, and it's supposed to retain that setting, but it obviously didn't. So yeah, let's use a brick pattern, and we can access the hard drive. Or at least I was able to. There you go. So it kind of seems to work, but so let's just assume that everything works right now, but we have a sound problem. And in order to diagnose that, we're going to have to open her up. So let's do that. There's 4 screws on the back of the cabinet, and that way the whole back comes off, and you're going to need a T15 with a moderately long shaft to get to the top screws at least. The top screws Let me show you. Okay, let's turn this thing off first. How did that work? Oh, okay, shut down. You may now switch off your Macintosh. And let's disconnect things for now. And get some more light. So this thing was built, where are we at? It was manufactured June 1991. And there are 2 screws here and 2 screws here that need to be removed. And then hopefully the whole back will come off. I don't think I've ever had this apart. So let's get going on that. After removing the screws, the whole back is supposed to slide out. And there you have it. So here's the power supply. It's actually, I guess, a combo supply that supplies both the logic board as well as the monitor. That's got the high voltage coming out of it. We got a hard drive sitting here. We got an extender board with RAM over here, and I guess on the bottom we have the motherboard. So let's see if we can how the motherboard's mounted and if we can get that out. So the motherboard, well, let's see. So first we have to take out the memory board here because that keeps it in place. Seems to loosen the motherboard, but it's got the SCSI connector here, which has to come out. And doesn't want to. There you go. It's got yet another connector. Oh, that is the floppy connector over here. And then a power connector. So yes, we can slide it out partially so we can grab the power connector. Does that have a tab on it? Yes, it does. You can't see that, but you just have to press in the tab and then pull the connector upward. This thing, be careful, this thing has sharp edges on it. Anything to make it easy. And I can already see a bunch of capacitors on here. Well, I can see capacitors. I can't smell anything or I can't see anything bad yet, but my prognosis may not have been that far off. And there we go. Well, you can immediately see here. Let's get a closer view. So, backup battery is missing completely. Somebody took it out. And again, we have to do the smell test. None of the caps smell really bad. But they probably have to go. It's probably a good first step to get these caps replaced. And then see what happens. Now the problem is, it needs these surface mount caps, which I don't have right now. And some of you have watched before know how impatient I tend to get. So I'm going to try something new here. And that's the following. So I looked at things a little more closely, and yes, there is evidence of corrosion here. Over here. Let's see, can you see that at all? Yeah, there you go. See all of that green stuff? Well, it's not coming from the battery, because the battery's gone, and even when the battery was there, there's no evidence of any sort of leakage here. So that must be coming from these caps. Now, what I was going to say is I don't have any of those surface mount caps, but what I do have is a bag of regular 47 microfarad ones. And I think what I can do is if I bend the pins like this, they will actually fit in place. I'll just cut the legs and solder them onto the pads. So that will take care of the 47s. Now there's also a 1 microfarad here. All these others are all 47s, but here's a one that's even smaller. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do about this, but after having seen the evidence of corrosion, we're going to have to remove these caps. Now there's several ways to remove the caps, and of course the clean way is that if you have a soldering iron with a tweezer tip, that is aptly named because it looks like a pair of tweezers, like this. And what you do, of course this being the tip for the soldering iron, it heats up, and you touch both the pads with it. It'll heat up both pads, and then you can just lift this out. I don't have tweezer back. Can you say that 3 times? Tweezer tips, tweezer tips, tweezer tips. I don't have any of those for my soldering iron, and because the pins on these surface mounts are really short, you can't even heat up one of the pads and then try to lift it up on one side and then on the other side. They won't move. And so the second thing to do is to basically, since these are all bad, is to twist them off the board. And that goes as follows. What this situation reminds me of is, in an earlier episode, I fixed a Tektronix TDS 460 oscilloscope, and it had a boatload of these, and a lot of them were bad. They all had to come off and be replaced, but it was simply that. I replaced the capacitors in the oscilloscope, and it came back to life. So, I mean, yeah, this thing is alive, but I think with the corrosion we just saw, I need to get the caps out. I need a toothbrush and IPA to see how much of it I can get off without having to put this in the dishwasher, and then put the new caps on it. So the removal method I'm going to try is you grab the cap and then you twist it back and forth. Now some people say you should just give it a nice twist, like a 90-degree twist, and it'll yank right off. This also works, but it does tend to put a little bit less stress on the pads on the PCB. And looking at this closely, I can't show you this with my cap. Yeah, you can kind of see it. It has leaked on the top terminal there. You can see some green, you can see a green spot. And looking at the board more closely, it does look like a few things have leaked from there, especially looking at these vias here. These are also no longer shiny. So yeah, these guys are leaking. They all have to come out, and then we got to give the board a nice brush down. Normally when you do something like this, make sure to take pictures of the PCB before doing anything with it, just in case it doesn't have proper markings on it, and then you can look up the picture as not to get the polarity of the replacement capacitors wrong. But in this case, looks like they've clearly marked the polarity here. So I will forego that step, twist off the caps, and then give it a good brushing with IPA. So these four over here came off really easy. I mean, I twisted them a little bit, you saw that before, and they pretty much broke off at the pads very quickly. And they all had evidence of leakage. Now these, I had to twist a little bit more. They were more stubborn, and notice the pins broke at where they enter the body of the component rather than at the board, and they don't show any evidence of leakage. So these are probably okay, and I can't really see any evidence of leakage over here. But yeah, over here, all four of these show evidence of leakage. So let's go ahead and clean that up. Well, we'll squirt the affected areas with some IPA. And then brush them. This chip here, this guy, had the most garbage on the legs. So I don't know if this is going to help. Oh, it actually helped quite a bit. There's still some green stuff left, but it looks like it's coming off. So let me go and do my IC brushing offline here, see how clean I get them, and then we'll try to fit the through-hole capacitors into the place of the surface mount ones and see how we can manage that. And here's what it all looks like. They fit the 47 microfarads fit in place pretty nicely. And after heating up the pads, I did get some of the electrolyte smell out of it. So yes, these had leaked. Interesting thing was the other here didn't look bad or smell bad or anything, but it turns out that the sound chip is right here. So I guess these, the ones that were in here, also had a problem. I mean, these all are pretty much mounted flush. The 1 microfarad, the pad was too small, so it's actually a little bit offset with the pins. Instead of being flush with the PCB, I had to raise it a little bit so I could get the leads to fit on the solder pads, but everything's in there now. So it's time to put the board back into the machine and see if we get glorious sound now. So I just put the board back in because I don't have a backup battery, and what that's going to cause is I think that the overall volume setting on the system is going to default to something low. So let's hope it boots up and we can crank the volume all the way up and see if our sound got fixed. Even at low volume I could hear it. Well, it looks at least like the sound got fixed. Now, of course, let's see if it still works. I don't see a mouse cursor. Oh, there you go. Smiley face. And it's loading stuff off the hard drive. Oh, that's interesting. It remembered the background I put on it. I don't know if you can see that, but I had changed the background and it remembered that one. So let's see if it actually, what the volume is set at for the sound, what the sound volume is. And yeah, see, that got put down to 3. Yep. Well, we fixed the sound. I did check voltages on board because I didn't pull out the power supply itself, but the voltages, the 5 and the 12, looked in spec and looked stable with very little AC component in them. So I'm going to forego recapping the power supply for now, and let's see if let's reboot it. This is at max now, and rebooting it without removing power, it should probably remember where the volume was at. So let's try that. Yeah, it's not super loud, but you can hear it. And it seems to boot. So that's good. Now, one other thing I want to do is I do have a box of Mac discs that I bought sometime. And what I want to do is, I think one of these has a diagnostic on it for the hard drive. So let's see what it thinks. SAM intercept scan, examining the volume utilities 1. This scan cannot be so it's got some sort of a virus scanner on it. Well, let's hope it passes. No viruses found. Yeah. Okay. So what we have is something called disk first aid over here. Well, I don't want to make it the startup. I want to... Why is it telling me that? Let's try it again. The volume utilities 1 could not be made the startup volume. Finder is older version. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I told you I'm not really good with the Apple. So we change to artifact SCSI device number 0. Yeah, okay, let's just verify the disk. See, the system artifact is the current system disk. You will not be able to complete any repairs if needed or erase the disk. Do you just want to verify the disk? Yes. Let's see what it comes up with. And that's probably going to take a while. So let's take a sandwich break. So I think I'm going to try another disk, because it did tell me that it said verification completed, but I can't repair the disk. So is that because it's the boot device, the currently active device? That was unclear to me. So let's get rid of this disk and put another one in. Oh, so it's going to this again. I'm going to have to get rid of this virus scanner. All right. Okay, so once the utilities disk back again, oh come on, So what's in the system folder? So this doesn't have all of the disk fixing stuff in it. So I'm going to give the utilities disk another try. Is it going to virus scan it again? No. Alright, still telling me Finder is the older version. So I guess I don't know. Let's live dangerously and see what some of the other stuff on here does. So what about the hard disk setup? Oh, that one doesn't run. What's in the system folder? All sorts of stuff, but not nothing that's going to let me run the disk first aid. Alright, so I probably have to make a system disk, and then I have to copy the disk first aid over to that. Never mind, it looks like the hard disk is working, so let's give it another try. And oh, wait a minute, no, I think we have to eject this disk first. Oh, you know what? What if I boot the system from this disk? Then it'll have the OS that's on this disk, and maybe that'll work. So now if we go to restart, and then theoretically, no, yeah, I want you to boot from here. Okay, so now it's booting off of this floppy disk, which means this is the master disk that the OS is on. So now if I run the repair utility on the hard disk, it should, if it finds something that's bad, it should actually allow me to do the repair. Yes, well, the hard drive shows up, but this is... So now, oh yeah, see, and it's not running the virus scan either because it's running the OS off of the floppy, and that doesn't have the virus scan on it. Okay. Okay, let it do its thing. All right, time for a big decision. What do you think I should do? I don't know. Let's go ahead and repair it. I think it'll boot up faster if I repair it. What do you say? Yes? All right. I'm doing it because you told me to do so. Okay. That was quick. All right. So I guess I should run this again. So if it finds anything bad, to see if it actually fixed it, or it was lying to me. And the minute I paused the camera, this is what it told me. So it did something. So let's see if it boots up a little faster now. So I guess we have to remove this disk now. So the thing boots up from the hard disk. See if that made any difference. So now is it going to tell me to put the disk back in if I... No. Well, that was significantly faster, the boot up, but it was a warm start. So let it come back. I'll turn the thing off and let it sit for a while and see if our repair made any difference. Our disk repair made any difference. Obviously our hardware repair did make a difference, but let's check out the disk repair. Sit for about 15 minutes or so. Okay, so I let her sit for about 15 minutes. Let's see if she boots at all, and if it's a little, and if she does, if it's a little faster than it was before. Well, sound's still there. Can hear the drive working. And yeah, it took about as long as it did before, so I guess the disk repair didn't really do anything. But it seems to be booting up without any complaints. And the funny thing is I don't have a battery for it. There's no battery installed in it. But the sound seemed to be at max. So if we go and look at control panel, yeah, see, it maintained the background pattern, and it maintained the sounds, the speaker volume too. So I guess I'm missing something here. I thought, the battery basically backed up SRAM to keep these settings, but looks like it's being saved somewhere else, and I'm sure those of you in the know of Macs will let me know why this is so. The reason I had this, and I actually used it for something semi-useful, was I used to have a sound sampler synthesizer made by EMU, the Emulator 2, and there was their sound designer on here, which lets you edit samples for that and hooks up directly to the sampler. So that's why that's the only useful thing I ever used it to. So let's see if this still works. Well, let's see if it loads it. Yeah, it does load. So what you do here is you load a sample. Where is it? Open. And I had a bunch where I did have sound banks. And there's Piano A2. So if we load that, it actually loads in the waveform for that, and you can play it through the internal speaker. Can you hear that? So, yeah, I guess the speaker's fixed. There's really not much else you can do here because it is not connected to an Emulator 2 right now. And, yeah, can't communicate. Fine. And it actually doesn't communicate via MIDI. It communicates via the serial port on here, because otherwise it would take like days to transfer a sample. It still took days, but it was somewhat faster than just going via MIDI. And what are the other things here? Oh, I guess you can just create sounds with this. Okay, what does that sound like? Very pleasant, thank you. So it does work still. Unfortunately, I don't have my emulator 2 anymore. But, okay, so if we make it a little louder, what happens then? Okay, oh, I don't have a keyboard plugged in, so never mind. It does seem to work. Now, as usual though, we should probably see if there are any games on here and see what those are like. So let's go to the hard drive and oh, games there, come back. Miscellaneous games. Oh, we play solitaire. Well, did we fix the sound or not? We sure did, and it sounds fantastic. So yeah, you have your solitaire game here, and nothing special, but I'll probably stay up for a few more hours tonight to play solitaire. But that's it. It seems to be working, and another successful repair. So here are the evil caps I removed, and I guess the moral of the story is that if you have a Mac somewhere tucked away and you think it's safe, well, if it hasn't had the caps replaced and it's a Mac of this vintage, it's not safe. It's basically self-destructing from the inside. So if you ever want to use it again, you better do to it what I just did to mine, and it should last you for a long time. Now, I don't, as I mentioned, I don't have a replacement battery for this Mac right now, and that's fine, because after the video, it's going to go back into storage and sit there for God knows how long. So I'm not even going to put a battery into it now. I'm just going to close it back up, wrap it in plastic, and put it back on top of my bookshelf. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it's worth a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe so we can spend many more evenings or days or whatever's together and enjoy fixing stuff. See you later.